right. Thank you so much for coming. Second lecture in Python this semester. We just, I think the first lecture was very easy. There's nothing except the homework that requires you to go and check how to do it. So maybe it required you some Googling, which is a task that you'll do a lot during this class, right? Today we'll continue, and also today's lecture, it will be an easy lecture, so we'll give you the foundation for Python. So we'll talk about variables, assigning variables, and then we'll talk about like the loops, for loop, while loop, if statement, if else, elif, all of these things, basic components, and that is like a very foundational information that you have learned it, I'm sure, in different languages. If you have done Java, then you know it. If you have done C++, you know it. But we'll tell you the context, how to do it in Python. So again, today's lecture will be an easy one. It's like a refreshment for your information. As we have agreed that we are like boarding airplane, all right? So you know how it is, go slow, all right? And this is a very good chance for you to pick up and to spend a lot of time just to refresh your memory and about programming tactics. If you have done a course in algorithms before or data structure, go review it. Same concept. This is a conceptual, right? Concepts. Doesn't matter what language you use. Okay, it's like a concept, programming concept. All right. Then after that, you know, it's like logarithmic. You'll see that the material we cover and the difficulty level of the material cover becomes exponential as we move, right? The homework, assignment number 1, you're supposed to be done with it. Anybody has a problem with it? Assignment number 1? Okay.
I did the coding all the way up to the hour, so when I was about to submit, it closed down on me, so can I just send it to you?
So you were late, you say?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll give extension for the first assignment until next week, so you could work on it with the assignment number 2. Is that fair? All right. Myself, I always try when I give a student a chance, I like to give it to everybody. If I agree to help one student, usually I extend it to everybody. I'd like to make it fair to everybody. So the assignment number 2 posted already, but this is an older one. So you'll have questions from it, but I'm adding a few more questions to that assignment. I will fat it a bit. It will be a little bit more fat. That requires more time from you. So I'm estimating between 3 to 10 hours to do the assignment, the new assignment. Depends on your level and how talented you are. All right? So we need to work. I mean, you need to program. If you need to be a good programmer, it's all about programming. It's all about programming. You could read as much as you can. It's not going to do anything to you. It will not make you a good programmer. All right? It will not get you a job. It will not even let you pass the course. All right? So you have to do as much as you can. You have to work and program. Not reading. Oh, by the way, did you get the textbook? I think the online. It's like an online version of it they gave you. No? What? No? Did you get it?
It's not in the bookstore yet.
It's not. What did they say?
There's a possibility it's in today. I'm gonna go check out.
No, I checked today.
It's online, or they actually e-book of
I
it.
know
Have
that.
you got your ebook?
Yeah.
Okay, so you could get the ebook version of it. Okay, so I think maybe it's because it's like a coding. Maybe ebook easier for cut and paste. I don't recommend it. Okay, I recommend that you type everything. But you know, whatever you want. I mean, whatever you want, whatever you like. I mean, that's one of 2 textbooks. The other one is Pandas that we're gonna use. Okay. All right. Any other questions before we kick in? All good. Everybody's happy. We're still friends. All right. Oh, maybe. Okay. So I'll make sure you are all my friends until the end of the semester, and even after the semester. Then after the semester, you'll continue to be friends. Okay. How good of a friend is? I don't know. I mean, just at least we are not enemies. We'll not be enemies, right? You are here all together to learn and to, you know, I learn from you as much as you learn from me. So that's what it is. That's how it is. That's how is the word. Okay. The word is becoming that the student could be more educational, more informative than a professor, and I'm looking forward to learn from you as much as I give you information in this course and other courses I teach. All right? All right. So we started with a Python last week, and I'm sure that all of you now have picked at least one IDE to use, right? So anybody picked PyCharm? Oh, most of you are PyCharm. Anybody used Microsoft compiler? Visual Studio? Okay,
Yes,
1, 2. Visual Studio, okay. Anybody use the standard compiler comes with Python? You did do that, okay. All right, you could use whatever. There is also RipIt or whatever. It's like there's many IDEs. Just be talented in one. Get used to one. Be talented. Know all functions. Remember that you need to have some IDE or some compiler that has a good debugging tool, because when you start to write complex programs, you need to be able to debug. Okay, and I think PyCharm is by far one of the best, but you could use whatever you want. It's your option to choose, and it's your call to use whatever. I don't care which one. Okay, just pick one. Don't keep switching. And in the class here, I'm gonna use two. The standard one comes with Python and the PyCharm. That's what I'll use here. Okay, so you could use whatever you like, right? All right, that's one thing. Okay. Also, regarding the homework, please try your best for the homework. As I told you, I gave you permission to work together. I have created the chat, which is Slack, so you could please keep checking it. Just keep it open while you are doing your work. And I find it the best way. Let me ask you this question, not to tell you, to ask you. What is the best way to learn anything?
Research.
What?
Research.
Research. Any better than research?
Practice.
Practice. Any better than practice?
Application.
Do application. Any better doing than application?
Collaboration.
Any better than that?
Repeating.
Huh?
Repeating.
Repeating. Okay.
Project.
Project. What do you think?
Again, repeating.
Repeating. Okay.
Can you repeat the question again?
Repeating. I mean, what is the best way to learn anything in life? Anything in life.
Experience.
Experience. You have how you get the experience?
Experiment.
Experiment. But that's not the best. There's better than experiment.
Fail.
Huh?
Fail. Make
Fail is a great thing to happen. Great thing to happen. Okay. But it's not that.
Succeeding.
Work with experienced people.
Experience. I mean, you're repeating yourself. You have to listen to each other, right? Don't repeat the answers. One more chance. A gift for the good answer. Teaching it. The best way to learn anything, to teach it. All right? Because when you teach it, you are under the stress that you have to explain it to the other people who don't know anything about it or know little about it. But you have to know yourself everything about it, right? Teaching is the best way to learn it. So if for example, you decided to teach Java, try to teach it. You decide to teach C++, try to teach it. Networking, try to teach it, and so on and so forth. And this is an advantage in my son, I did not, 4 years ago, I did not know anything about Python. So I offered to teach it, all right? And, this where I picked it up, and so on and so forth. Okay, teaching it. So why I'm saying that? Because, we have to teach each other. So we created the chat program. So try to pick yourself. See what other questions your colleagues have. They have difficulty, and try to help them out publicly there. Okay, make it in a public. Okay, so somebody says, well, I'm trying to create a random. I would like to have like a random value between this number and this number. I don't know which library you have to import or what function you have to call. Okay, and you know it. So you paste it for your colleague, and he will use it. And you have a question, you post it there. So let's make it like interactive as much as we can, right? So this way that all of us will learn from each other, all right? Again, as I told you for the assignments, so this is not a secret. I mean, you're gonna have big assignments that requires lots of hours from you, but it's only count for how many points of the course? 10 points. Okay, so feel free to cheat as much as you can, copy from as much as you can, but you never do any good to yourself when you do that, because you'll not be able to answer the questions in the exams, midterm, final, you'll not be able to do the project. After that, you'll not be able to find jobs and does not do anything. All right. So don't look at that assignment and whether it's longer or or longer than you expected, that it's like a hurdle or it's like a punishment or like something. No, this is a challenge for you to do it. Okay, when you find difficulty, try to spend some time, give a time for yourself, half an hour, 1 hour, whatever time you could afford to spend on the problem, then ask the question to your colleagues, work together and try, okay? Try the technique. So let's make it interactive, use Slack a lot and share the questions. And if you like also to create like a discussion group in Canvas, I'll be more than happy to do that. As long as you're happy, that will help you. Again, as I told you, these assignments is to get you, and it's not enough. Whatever assignments you have is not enough. You have to go to the book, end of the book, there's problems, try to solve it. Go to your Java. If you did Java, the first class in Java, for example, book, textbook, or you did C#, there's a problems, right? The problems written in what? In what language usually? It's with that language, right? Do it in Python. You can see how you can do it in Python, okay? It's about working hard and perseverance, and you never give up. Okay, that's how you become a good programmer, and to be a good programmer, it's not a click like that you'll become a good programmer. If you like, when you finish up on your finishing your degrees in 4 years if you are a bachelor's student, or in 2 years if you are a master's student, it's not like that you decide, I'm gonna close my door for 3 months, I'm gonna learn programming, I'll be excellent programmer, I'll apply for a job, I will get a job. It's not going to happen, it's not like this way. Never been like this way. It's like, it has to be like, over time. Okay? It's exactly, one more time, it's like the language. How babies learn the language. You know how the babies learn the language? Okay, they start with a word, whether they start with papa, mama, 2 words and all of that, then another word, a 3rd word, 10th word, then they put the sentence, the first sentence, and the first sentence you cannot understand it usually, but it takes you a while. Okay, and so on and so forth. That's a language. That's what we call it a language. It needs some time to pick up and to be there. Clear? All right. So today, okay, we're gonna start talking. Let's just brief what we're gonna talk about. Okay. All right. So we started last week talking about programming with Python. So we said you have to create a script, call it whatever. For example, for your first my Python 5, for example, Python 5.py. Always you have to give it .py extension, right? So it's a script that you're gonna write, and has a sentence, right? A sentence, for example, you could have print, okay, whatever, here, right? Then to compile it, all you have to do, so not mine, use, okay? To compile it, all you have to do, if you remember that, you have to say Python, okay, and the name of the file, whatever the name of file.py, right? All right. Then we start talking about the first thing that you have to learn in any language is how to read data and how to type to the screen, right? So very simple. In Python, to type to the screen or to get the output to the screen, there's a function given to you called, what is it? Print, right? Print. All right? Print. So parentheses, okay? And print with the parentheses, this is in Python 3. In old Python, Python 2, there's no parentheses. Remember in this course which Python we're talking about, which version? 3. Okay, so 3. So we put, for example, print whatever, hello word, whatever, and it will print, right? Okay, and I mean to read from the keyboard, there is a command which is called, or a function called input. So for example, you say input, you're gonna say a message, for example, enter a value, for example, colon, okay? And whatever value you enter, you could save it in a variable x, for example, right? And from there, you're gonna save it. By default, the input reads what? What type of the value? What is the type of the value? String. So for example, if you're trying to read an integer, so you have to cast it, okay? You have to cast it, what do you say? Integer, right? You have to be careful, right? Integer, and then the value here is integer. So input, output, that's the first thing. Then after that, we spoke about, okay, variables. In any language, you have to understand what are variables. Variables are locations in the memory, right? Reserved location in the memory. So usually you have a string, okay, integer, and float, okay, and boolean, okay, and there is different others, but these are the major ones. How Python is different from other languages, from Java, for example. Let's compare our work. Most of you did Java as a first language. Java. Who did different language than Java? What did you do?
C#.
C#. That's your first language?
Kind of.
Okay. All right. Any other? Yes.
C++.
C++. Okay, you're lucky. Okay.
Same C++.
C++, okay, I love C++. I think myself, C++ should be the first language. Okay, myself. Many people disagree, but that's fine. Okay, so we are close. C++, C#, Java, the same. So let's compare all our talks to Java, right? All right, it's similar, right? So when you come to variables in Java, what you have to do to use it? You have to declare it, okay? So remember in Java, for example, what you say, integer, for example, x. And it could initiate it equals 10, right? Semicolon, right?
Yeah.
All right? In Python, you don't have to declare the variable. Who does declare who does kind of declare the variable for you? The compiler by itself. All right? And is this good or bad?
It could be both.
It's good and bad. Okay, why is it bad? What? No, not necessarily. Okay. But why is it bad?
It might misunderstand you.
Huh?
It might misunderstand.
It will make the compilation slower
Oh, okay.
because it will be declared at the compile time,
Yeah.
right? So or the execution time or run time, right? Okay. What is the advantage? It makes it easy. Okay. I mean, it takes a while for a new programmer to tell them what is integer, what is a float, what is string, why you have to declare it, and and it could cause error. So if you declare a variable as integer and you assign a text for it, it could give you an error, right? You agree? So it's an easier, okay? All right. So in here we don't have to do that. Just we declare it, and there's no semicolon, or you could have it, but you could declare it, right? All right. So these are variables, right? Okay. After variables, what we have, all right, what is the first sentence usually we use? What is the most sentence that your wives usually use? My wife usually use. F. What if? What if? Everything F. Listen, what if, right? All right, so children also, okay? If you have children, always what if, what if, right? So F sentence, right? So before the F, what we have to know? Conditions, right? Right? So for example, say x greater than 10, or x less than 10, or x less or equal than 10, or x does not equal 10, right? Conditions, okay? Right? There's a lot of conditions. And then we use an if statement. So we could say, for example, if, okay, x greater than 10, you have to have a colon, and then you could say whatever, if print, for example, print X. All right. So what did you notice in here? One rule, major rule in Python is indentation. So you have to have always indentation, right? Okay. So, okay. Then after that, we're gonna talk about else. Okay. If else. Okay. Else. And we'll talk about the for. We'll talk about the while. Okay. And maybe other things as well. That's what we get. So it's an easy lecture, but the homework will be involved. I mean, you have to work a little bit in the homework. Any questions? Screen now. Anybody went over the Python 2, the second Python file? No? Oh, okay. All right. So we'll talk about today about statements. Let me put this first. Okay, we'll talk about the statements and then values, data types, the variables. We already spoke about this, but we'll give a few more examples. And the operators, the bitwise expressions, order of operations. So, for example, parentheses first, then then multiplication, division, then addition, subtraction. These. So, okay. We'll talk about strings and the comments and the console input output and the block structure that we have learned. So first of all, I mean, all of you maybe you notice this line. This is called the shebang. The shebang line. What is shebang line is for? Do you need it when you program in Windows machine? You might not. But if you use Unix, it will tell you. It will tell the compiler where to find the file, the Python code. So the shebang line, which starts with the hash and then exclamation letter, user bit inf, where to print the environment, and then it looks for Python 3. So you use it, for example, only when you are programming in Red Hat or the environment is a Unix environment. For Windows, if you put it, you don't put it, it does not make a difference. Except in some situations, I'm not sure if I'm going to cover it in this class, is when you are working with web servers. Okay, like for example IIS. Okay, yeah, sometimes it's good to point where is the executable file. Okay, you could use it also in Windows when you have multiple compilers installed. Okay, you could have Python 2, Python 3, different versions. So you would like to specify one Python to use, then it's a good thing to include it. But for now, you don't have to worry about it unless anybody using Linux this class? No? Okay. All right. All right. As you see in here, for example, quickly. I mean, I know you know already of this. So in here, what you are trying to do, we're trying to declare variables. So what is the variable? Is count. The first one is counter. So what is the counter? What is counter? What kind of variable it is? Is it integer or a string? Integer. If we're gonna make the string, we have to put it in double quotes, right? You agree? All right. Am I able to? So if you have x, for example, equals 10, okay, print x and then execute this, run this, okay. Okay, it gave you 10. So if I would like to know the type, how can I know the type of the x? There's a function given to you called type, and remember this, you're going to use it a lot in your programming and in your programs, especially when you get complex. So you would like to know the type of the variable that you have. So it will give you as integer. All right. Okay. If I for example, if I make 10 like that, okay. Now if I run it, what is the type will be? String. All right. If I make it like 10.0, what will be? Who said double? I say the string because I did not remove that. Okay, so when I remove it now, yes, it will give me, okay, a float. Okay, it's a float, right? And there is a double, there is decimal. We'll learn about decimal later, but it's part of the library, right? Okay, so let me go back in here. Okay, and clear like that. Okay, so select this. All right. So we have in here, for example, it's like you see in here. This is all integers, and there's the while statement and whatever in here. Okay. So we learned about the print. Print. What does it print? What are the parameters you pass for a print?
String.
String. Okay. If it's not a string, what do I have to do? I have to cast it. So instead of going in here, okay, I have to cast it. Always I have to cast it. So for example, in here, for example, if we would like to print, okay, in here, okay, print, for example, so it has to be like this: the value of x equals, for example,
I think
all right.
it's
It's not visible. So it's not on the same screen.
What?
You don't share your laptop.
Yeah, that's what they don't like. Alright, so when I say print, the value of x equals whatever, okay, if I do, for example, comma, okay, comma, or I could use plus, whatever you like, let's say plus, let's use plus, what is my plus in here, plus, and I say x. Will it work?
Yes.
It will work, right? Sure?
No.
Right?
No. No.
Oh, it gives me an error, why? Because x is not a string, so what I have to do?
But you use the
str, I have to str, and then I have to cast it to be a string. So now str x, I'm converting the x to a string, and then I'm concatenating two strings, and worked fine in here, right?
What if you use the comma? Would you have to do
No
that?
need to typecast.
You could use a comma.
But then typecasting is not required, right?
What?
If we replace plus with comma, typecasting is not required.
Yeah, you don't have to cast it as a string if you just put comma.
Yeah. Okay. So if that's true. So
Oh, okay.
in here it will, but if you concatenate a string, it will not. You know, and that's what you're saying. If you remove this in here like this, all right, and that's okay. Because okay, it will work, right? Comma, all right, all right. But you know, if you need to concatenate, you have to have string with a string, right? Okay. All right. So yeah. Okay. So you could play with this, and okay. So now, if you have multiple lines, you need to have multiple lines. It's very easy. So you could have implicit. You could have implicit continuation, but you should start at like a major separator, like plus, minus, whatever. So in here total score plus string whatever, then I start in here. So if I start, for example, a new line from here, will it work? No, right? The best thing is to be sure always you just have the backslash, okay, and then start the new line. This is how to connect two lines. How to connect two lines. So if the one sentence, one statement needs to span two lines, just use the backslash. Use the backslash, okay, and move on. Right. Indentation is a very important. Usually the default is like 4, but you could have tab, you could have 2, you could have one space. It's by your design, okay, by your wish. All right, but make sure that you have the indentation. Okay. So this is the shebang. You have to have shebang. Then always you could have the comments, okay, which you start with the hash, okay, or you could have like doc string, like three double quotes, and ending with 3 double quotes. You could have multiple lines. It's similar to what in C++, right? Backslash and all of that. Okay. All right. So in here, different sentences and okay. Comments. Always you have to have a comment. Writing comments is an art. So basically, when you write a code, it has to be like a short story. If you give me for example your code, and instead of using like useful variable names and useful function names and useful file names, using like what I do X and Y, and if you yourself write the code at night and write it in the morning and read it in the morning, what will happen to you? You'll forget. You'll forget everything you did, right? So always try to take your time to give a good names, proper names, all right? And there's 2 formats to give a name, okay? The one like Java. How is Java, the variable names are written, for example?
String variable.
Start with the lowercase word, and for extra additional word, you start with capital, right? And you could use hyphen. You could use the hyphen word. So you could, for example, for a variable, you could, for example, call it, for example, first grade, or you could say first, for example, grade, like this. All right. Myself, for a reason, I prefer this. But everybody else will prepare that, and I recommend you to get trained to use this, because that's how Java uses it, okay, and how everybody is using it. So start with lowercase word, and for every additional word, start with a capital, and will be good. All right. All right. So we have learned about the print function. All right, I don't have to go over it again. The Python data types, there is a string. We have learned about string, integer, float. There is bool, okay. Bool, okay. There is decimal. We'll talk about it later. There is float. There is double. I don't have to explain what are these. These are examples in here for assigning like variables. So the first one, first name is a variable and equals to mine. So what type of the first name, what type is it? String. Okay, it will be determined by the system. About the quantity 1, it will be integer. About quantity 2, integer. List prices will be float. All right, so you could assign a variable to a variable, there is no problem, as long as it has a value. So in here it gave you an error because I think it should be Q in here, capital Q. The variable is not declared or not defined yet. It's not defined yet. All right. All right. So you could give any name for variables except the keywords. Except the keywords. These are the keywords like the while, with, yield, lambda, none, non-local, whatever. Okay, for, from, global, if, import. All of them you'll learn about them as we go in the course. As we said, there's two formats for the variable name. So you could use this one, okay, which is variable underscore name, or you could use the Java one, like the candle case. All right. The operators, you know the operators used. You have addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Maybe this is new to you in integer division. So this will give you the lower value. So if you say, for example, 5 divided by 2, if you use division, it will give you 2.5. But if you use integer division, it will give you 2. The floor value will give you the floor value. Then you have the modulo, okay, which gives you the remainder. And then you have the exponentiation that will give you the exponentiation. These are some examples of it. All right, so the order or precedence, okay, usually we start with the parentheses, then the exponentiation, then multiplication, division, floor division, and modulo, and then the last thing, addition and subtraction. And I think this is something you have learned from your early. So it makes a big difference, for example, in here. Which process you have to do first? Multiplication. So you do a multiplication and then addition. Parentheses here change the whole game. So what you have to do first? Parentheses, which is addition, 3 plus 4, which is 7 times 5, which will give you 35. All right. All right, we have learned this also from the early programming languages, okay, which is like compound assignments, okay, and usually we use it mostly for increment and decrement, mostly increment and decrement. We don't have like in Python this one I, for example, plus plus, you know, or plus plus I, which we use in Java. We don't have it in Python, as far as I know. So this is for increment and decrement. We use just the compound assignments. We use the compound assignments, like in here. So counter plus equals 1, plus equals 1. That means counter equals counter plus 1. Okay, this is more compound assignments. Alright, we explained this how to use the shell last time. So remember that you could have always empty string. You could have empty string, alright? And as the first name in here, the last name, and the name, all of them are strings. How to join two strings with the operator? Plus. Plus is to join the string. And remember in here you have to join what? Strings. You have to join strings. So if one sides are not string, you have to cast it. You have to convert it to a string. Okay? And it's very simple. A function given to you, str, convert any other type to a string. Not every other type. Okay, one thing you have to remember always. Okay, Python is all about objects. Everything is an object. Okay, everything is an object. That means is instantiated from a class. Okay, we'll talk about object-oriented programming later. Okay, but everything is instantiated from a class. All right, so name in here, what is it? It's string. Age is an integer. So message, which is name, plus is. So name is a string, no problem. Plus is another string, no problem. Age is a digit, is an integer. So what they have to do? To cast it first. They have to cast it first. All right, and there's a few examples in here that you can take a look. All right, in the print statement, okay. So you have like escape sequences, backslash n means new line, backslash t, tab, r, return. This is you escape the quotation, escape the single quotation, escape the backslash. All right. One thing I would like you always when you are working, I mean, things are not as easy as you think or as simple as you think. So for example, if you go for example and you say Python print, all right? So it's a function Python, and let's go in here for example. Anywhere, I mean, as I told, for example, okay? So when you look at the format of the Python, okay, so in the print you could pass multiple objects separated by comma, okay? So Python, what does it print? Objects. Okay, when it prints string, what is it printing? String object. Okay, when it's printing a decimal, what is it printing? Decimal objects, right? So you could have as many objects as you want. That's number one. Okay, now when you say, for example, in here, okay, so when you say, for example, let's say, okay, y equals 2 or 3, whatever. And when I say print x, comma, y, right? Comma, okay. What it will print?
10.
Okay, 10 and?
3 together.
And 3. Are they together?
Yeah.
Or there is a separation
They're
between them?
together.
There is what?
They're together.
Together, are you sure? There's a space. There's a space. Where is the space coming from?
Comma.
From the comma. Alright? So what if I say, okay, what if I say, like that, what will print?
I would print out the straight line between them.
Alright? So by default, what we did, I mean, the default value for the separator is space. But it could be anything. You have to change it. It could be anything. So many of the functions that we use, or the methods we use them in the most simple format, the default format. Alright? If you need the complex, you always try to peek at the format. So for example, the format, you could, okay, put the separator. If you don't put it, what the value of the separator will be? The default value. Okay, who made the default value? Who wrote the print function? Alright? Remember, it's object. It's like objects inherited, right? We'll learn about that later, right? So they made the default separate. If you don't, you could specify it, but if you don't, it will. Then, what is at the end? What is by the default at the end? A new line. A new line, right? Okay, you could change it. So for example, I could say here, let me go to my program. Okay. Where is it here? I could say in the end, for example, in here, comma, end equals, okay, ha. Alright? That's the end, okay? So let me run it. You see? It replaced the new line with okay? So you could design it the way you want. I mean, in most cases, all the functions we use them in the default way, but we don't pay attention that they have so much power that you could control. So, yes?
Why isn't there a space after 3? Because
There is space after what?
3,
Because there's no space after
3
3.
and H. Why isn't there a space?
No, there is no space. I'm not sure it's not supposed to be a space.
There's no space there because of the end that he added. and
Is
the
equals to
at
it should
instead
be
of
combined.
space.
Oh, yeah.
There's no space after 3. And we replace the separator with the vertical part. Alright? Alright? So what I'm saying, I could give you, for example, an assignment. I would like to print the output and I need the separation, for example, this vertical part. And then to do this assignment, you go write like 20 lines. 20 lines. Okay, just printing one after one and all of that. Okay, for the output. But you know, you do not check that it's already there, part of the print function. It's already part of the. So what I advise you, as I told you, I mean, a key for your success in this course in programming, that you have to have two screens. First one is your programming, the other one is Google any function. And even if you think that you know the function very well, you know how it works, just Google it quickly. So I did not finish yet, right? So why is it in here? So you have, I mean, you have also the file, okay? Now, when you do print, where's the output go?
Command console.
To where?
Console.
To the console. Okay, what is a console? It's a file.
Yeah.
So you could change the print statement not to print to the console, it could print to a file in your desktop. So you say, for example, file equals the file. It will not print to the desktop. Alright? So for example in here, okay, you can go in here. So in here, let's say file, let's call it file equals, for example, text out, for example, out txt. When you run it, let's run this. So I have to open the file, okay, because the file, I have to open it, that's different, I have to open the file, and then I will be able to write to it directly, okay? But instead of typing to the screen, which is a console, which is for the operating system, what it's called? File descriptor. File descriptor. Everything is a file descriptor, right? Okay. And then after that, what you have in here, flush. Okay. So for example, when you go to the file, optional, an object with a write method, default, it prints to where? Says dot standard output, which is the console. You could change it to a file. In here, the end by default is what? The new line feed. Okay. The separator by default is what? A single space. You can't read, right? A single space. just an example for print, how sophisticated and how much you could do. Okay. All right. So let's go back to here. All right. All right. So print. This is a new line. You could indulge there. Bubble /t, which is for tabs, 2 tabs, and the tab is usually 8 characters, as far 8 spaces, as far as I know. All right. Okay. Could take a look at that. So print receives for arguments in here. These are simple things, and you could take a look at. All right. We covered all of this, so I don't want to waste time on that. All right. So now that's for print. So print, and there's later on you learn about formatting output, which could be much more complex formatting, right? In C, what do you use to format? Printf, you remember printf? Okay, C++, what do you use to format? C out. Okay, and there's, okay. So always for the output, depending on the language, there is a way to format the output, right? So there's different ways to do formatting for the output in Python. Okay, so we'll learn that later. But to read from the keyboard, what is keyboard? Is a file. It's considered a file, standard input. Okay? So input, use the input, and you could give the example, and then you save the data in equality. Remember that sometimes you need to cast the data. You need to cast the data you are using. So for example, in here, y, I don't know what's the y. For example, so I could say input, okay, and I could give indication to the user, please, for example, enter a value between, for example, 3 and 9, okay, and column space, right? So whatever I enter, it will be saved where in the y. It will be saved in the y. If I say in here, for example, z equals x times y, will it work? Will it work? No, most likely no. Why?
Why is it so?
Because y, it will be entered as a string. Can you multiply? I'm sorry. We could make x here. So we know the value of x is how much? 10. And y has to be integer, or float at least, right? But you cannot multiply it. Can you multiply your string? Can we?
No.
Okay, we can, but it will do different things. So let's try it. Let's do like this. Y, okay, y, okay, multiply x. Okay, and let's print z. What do you expect the output will be?
Multiple series
Multiple.
of tens.
Multiple, yes. Okay, that's what I expect myself. Okay, let's enter 4, for example. So is that the right result I would like to do? No. But what does it do? Substituted y. What is the value of y? 4, which is like a character, and times 10, printed it 10 times. But what I wanted in here, to do integer multiplication. So what I have to do in here, just I have to convert it to integer. Let's try it now. Let's 4 again. Now it worked, right? So it depends what you want. Just be aware with the casting of the variables that you need to do, okay? Alright, so it should be clear, right? Sometimes you need to do casting for the values that you're using. So this is an example. There's a few codes written for you, and all your, so this is like a miles per gallon of code written. Okay. By the way, the codes are here for you. You could download them. Okay. Right, so it's just attached for you. So in the PowerPoint, you could download them and run them. Okay, but that's the code in here. Okay. Let's take a look at that code. So, simple program in here, okay? So let's take a look at it quickly. We could write it also, we could just run it or whatever. Okay, so what we do first, print test scores, okay? Print for a new line, empty line. Then we tell the user, enter 3 test scores, enter 3 test scores. So we print that. And then we print a line with this format just to make it nice. Total score at the beginning is 0, and total score plus, you ask the user to enter the first score, you integer it, and then you save it in the total score after you adding it to it. Then you ask him to enter the second score, and then the third score. All of the 3 values will be added to the total score. Now I need to calculate the average score. How I do that? Total score divided by 10, and because it will be like a decimal value, could be like a very long list, values, all I have to do to round it. Okay, by default rounds to 2 values, and then I could print the output. All right, so What is a statement? It's the smallest unit in the code. It's the smallest smallest unit in the code. Okay? Which smallest code that Python can interpret. By the way, in biochar, if you go to biochar, where's biochar? Here. So when you go in here, you could have the console also. So this is the terminal for the output. Okay, this is the terminal. You could see dir. You know the files, you could do whatever you want. Okay, this is the output, and then you could go to the Python console, and you could type, you know, whatever command. So for example, you could say x, c equals 3 print c, for example, right? You could work in the console to try things out, okay, before you try the code. Or you could write the script and run the script, okay, run the script from there, whatever you want. So it will give you the output, okay? The statement is the smallest unit that you could execute, right? So when you say x equals 1 is a statement, the print statement is a statement, okay? So a program of Python usually contains an ordered sequence of statements. The interpreter will execute the statements one after another, top to bottom, just as you normally read page in English. We spoke about a very important function that we use a lot in your programming, which is type. All right? You'll be creating classes, you'll be instantiating objects from the classes, and sometimes you're going to have a class inherited from a class, inherited from another class, so you'll get lost. What type is this object? All right? All right, so always, when you would like to know, for example, later on in the containers, we have lists, we have tuples, we have dictionaries. Talk about that next class. All right. So sometimes, you know, we're like, oh, I created this somewhere. Okay, so what type is it? So you'll find yourself using the type very a lot, you know, in your work. All right, so we spoke about variables, operators. Also, later on, when we start working about the objects and the classes, operators will be overload. We will learn about how to overload. Anybody knows what's overload operator?
Means to give an operator additional functionality.
Okay, such as?
So the plus operator, for example, if instead of just, maybe you want to add by 2 instead of by 1, you could bake that into the operator. So
Sure, so you change the function of the operator. So think about, like, for example, you have a class of boxes, okay? A class of boxes. So let's say you have a class of a box, for example, a box, right? Okay, and you have box A and another box B, all right? So usually when you say 5 plus 5, that's understood by Python, right? What does it do? What does plus do? Addition, right? Okay, so when I say, for example, A plus B, what is A?
The box.
A box object. Don't forget to use the word object from now on. A string object, dictionary object, decimal object, float object. Everything is an object here. Is an object, right? Object, that means what? Instantiated from a class. From a class. So when I say box A, which is a box object, added to a box object. What does it mean?
you define that.
You have to define it. So if you run this, it will give you error. But what you could do overload, okay? So for example, you could overload it to mean the volume of A plus the volume of B equals a value. All right? All right? So that's, you learn it later. Any operator, you could override it. It will work differently, okay? It will work differently. Think about, for example, okay? For example, is like, you know, you have a square A, or C, let's say C, and a square D. And then I tell you C plus D. So object is square, what I'm adding in here. So I have to define it. Yes?
Once I overload that operator, do I have to reset it back, or
You
is
have
it
to
only
write
that-
the code for it.
Okay.
Okay, you have to write the code for it. We'll learn it later in the 4th lecture, how to have operator overload.
Okay.
So in here, for example, you could it could be the area. So when you say C plus D, that means calculate, for example, this 2 times 2, 3 times 3, this is 9, this is 4. It means 4 plus 9, which equals what about 13? Right? That's operator overloading. So we'll learn about that, right? So you could, any operator, you could change the meaning of it to behave differently. Why you need to do that? For easiness, to make your programming easy, right? Yeah. All right. So you could have one more example. You could have a person. Okay, person. Okay, person. Another person. And you say person A and person B. A plus B. What does it mean? That's you define. So to be the ages, for example. You have the ages, you have the heights, you have the weights. Okay? You could do whatever. So you'll be able to, or X, or division, or minus, or whatever. Okay, any operator, yes.
When we did the example before where we had the string multiplied by an integer, was that an example of operator overload?
Sure, that's exactly what it is. That's a good point. Yep. So when you say, for example, X, okay, equals, for example, A. When I say X equals X multiply, or A, or X multiply 4, what does it do? So this is like overloaded, means repeat the value. Repeat the value. Okay? All right. We'll take a break in a second, but let me see. So there is, operators can be overloaded in Python. Some libraries already have overloaded operators, sets modules, like or and for union and intersection. Okay, so this is, for example, is like a bitwise XOR. This is for the power. You need to learn about these things by yourself. There is different operations that you have to know. For example, left shift and right shift. What is a right shift? Divide by 2, right? Right shift, left shift, multiplied by 2. Okay. So you have the logic and the logic or the complement, and here you have x close bit y. Okay. Anyways, what is expression? Expression is a combination of values, variables, and operators. So this is an expression. It could be either, could be or, could be values alone or variables alone, or with operators. So every expression is a statement. Every expression is a statement, but not every statement is an expression. All right. Did we learn about? We really learned about the order of operations. If you forgetting it, just remember this. Okay, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Okay, so P for what? Parentheses. Excuse for, and so on and so forth, right? All right, so this is funny, right? The multiple assignments. You don't see it in Java or C++, right? So you could assign 3 variables at the same time. So it's like you're assigning 3 to the Z, and to the Y, and to the X. So it's permissible to multiple assignments in the same statement. Okay? So Python tries to make things easy. Once you get used to it, you find it easy, but it's gonna take you 2 years. After you program for so many years in Java and C++, which is the same syntax almost, right? Okay, now you're switching to Python. You'll find it's cool. Truly, Python is fun once you start working on it. I mean, especially when you go for a complex. You know, it's like you know when you talk about the clouds, cloud computing. What's the whole idea of cloud computing? Huh?
Just to save data.
Save data? Maybe. Any idea? Like having everything in the cloud. You don't have to have data centers. So for example, you know, we have the database, we have the web server, we have everything here in the data center. All right. Nowadays, every year, if not every year, every month, many companies moving to the cloud. What examples for cloud? Amazon Web Services, Amazon Web Services, right? Google, Azure, okay, and a few others, right? So these are clouds, right? Everything in the cloud. You don't have to have a data center. So what's the point? I mean, what's the point that you move everything to the cloud?
Reduce costs, increase accessibility.
Yeah.
Efficiency.
Huh?
Efficiency.
All of the above. But what is my point is, it will make you focus on the, not on building the technology. Right? So now, I mean, let's say that you would like to launch a web server. What do you need? You need to have to get a hardware, which is a server. Then you have to pick the OS, operating system. Okay, Red Hat Enterprise or server, Windows Server or what, okay, install it. And then you have to patch it. And then what you have to install? The web server itself, which is IIS or something else. And then you have to get another server to install what? The backend database. Database, right? And then you have to create the front end, right? So before you start coming to the real production, you have to spend a lot of administrative job, right? Now what Amazon Web Services tell you? Don't worry about all of that. 1, 2, 3, 4 clicks, you'll have web server is ready. What you have to focus about?
Just code.
About creating your web page, that's it. All right? Let's go to Python, what I'm trying to say in here. So Python tries to make the language easy. Okay, syntax is easy, compilation is easy, writing a code is easy. It tells you don't waste your time focusing in the language and the syntax, just focus on what? On the programming and the logic. That's the whole idea. Okay? Whether they are successful or not. Okay? But I'll find it myself is easier to compile, easier to trace errors, easier to fix errors. Just you have to focus on compilation. And like our friend there, I mean, if I may take you as an example, the corner, she's not with me anyways. Okay. She's, for example, from business background. And she dares to take Python. Why? Because she knew this Python is used a lot for business applications, and she heard, I'm sure, she's not there still, from someone, that, you know, learning Python is not as tough as learning Java and everything else. She will be able to pick up soon, right? But it's just a simple syntax and all of that, which is true, okay, for data science and all of that, right? So that's the idea. That's the idea of Python. It will make it. Now, for example, can you tell me a very complex topic that Python is used for? It's the leader in nowadays in that area.
Data analytics. Data analytics.
Data analytics, that's true, but more complex than that. AI, machine learning, deep learning, right? Okay. So now, I mean, if you need to do deep learning, machine learning, AI, you have to know Python. You don't have to, but it's like becoming the main player. Okay, a lot of libraries, a lot of functions, a lot of classes, just call them, okay, and run them, okay? It's much more easier than doing anything. So that's the whole thing. Let's have a break, if you don't mind, for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever you like. All right? All right, so in the second section, we'll talk about 3 things. We'll talk about the functions. Okay, so what are functions? But that you repeat a lot, right? So for example, when you say print, okay, print. What is this?
Function.
A function. Somebody wrote it for you and you keep using it, right? So you could write your own functions, especially if you need to call them multiple times in your code, right? So the first thing what you have to do, you have to define a function. Okay, so you start with the word def. Okay, you give it a name, for example, add 2 integers, for example, and then the parameters, right? So for example, x and y, all right? And don't forget always the column, okay, column. Then you have to have indentation, right? So for example, you could say z, for example, equals x plus y, because add 2, and then you could say return z, for example. That's it, function. So whenever you need to add the 2 numbers, you could call this function. How you call it? How you call it? Okay, very simple. So for example, okay, you could say, for example, add 2 and 6 and 9, for example. All right, if I assign it to, for example, a, what would be the value of a? The x will be how much? 6. And the y will be 9. So it will move to here, it will move to here. It will be 6 plus 9. What's the value in here? 15. And return z, what's the value? 15. So when I do add, this will return how much? 15. 15 will go to where? To a. So what's the value in a? Is 15. Simple. Functions are very simple in Python. You don't have to say void. You don't have to say. You don't have to determine the return the return type. Remember in Java you say void or integer or float or decimal or string or whatever. You don't have to worry about all of that. And by the way, you don't have to return anything. Okay, you don't have to return anything. It does whatever you want. Okay, and without returning anything. It could be done this way, right? Okay, so functions are very easy. It's a repeated code that you need, and it will be all you have to do is to call it, right? Could have a return value and all of it. So it's very simple. Again, def, name, parameters, and okay. So let's say that I have 2 parameters in here, right? Whatever the code in here. When I call it, okay, I have to pass the parameters by order, the same order, right? So let's say, for example, okay, in here, we change it. Display, let's say call it display. Okay, and the first one, okay, let's change it like that. Display. Okay, and then here name and age. Column. So it will print name, comma, age. Okay, that's it. That's the function does, right? So when I call it in here, okay, display, I call it by the name, display. Okay, I have to pass how many parameters? 2. Is the must. Is the must. To pass 2. Yes, right? So, for example, for the name, I say, for example, Jack. for the age 40, right? Is there a way to make passing the parameters not a must?
You're passing the number.
Before that, if I do like this, 40 first, 40, and then Jack. Will it work?
No.
It will not work, right? It has to be the same order, right? All right, so if I say, for example, age equals 40 and name equal Jack, will it work? Yes. So if I don't want them to be in the same order, what I have to do? I have to specify the parameter name. The parameter name, right? All right. Is there a way that I could call the function with no parameters at all? Is there a way I could call the function with no parameters at all? Yes. Since I asked, of course, yes. Okay. Why? How?
Default value.
Default values. I have to have the. So if I say, for example, name, for example, in here the name equals, for example, name equals Scott, for example, Scott, and age equals 50. So if I don't pass anything, it will take what? The default values. The default values. So again, what we have learned about the functions. That's everything about functions. We're done. Functions are done. What are functions? Functions are a piece of code that you're gonna call multiple times, right? Okay, how you start writing the function? With a def. Alright? Do you have to specify a return value?
No.
Do you have to specify the return type value? Nothing. Okay, forget about the complexity that we had in C++ and Java, right? You give it a name, all right? The name has to explain what you want to do, right? And then two parentheses, a color. Don't forget the color. Never forget the color, right? The color. Then inside the parentheses, what you have? Parameters that you're gonna pass to the functions, right? By default, these parameters has to be ordered. Okay, ordered. So when you call a function, you call them in the same order, all right? You could also have a default values. So that means what? If you don't pass a value, it will take the default value, all right? If I would like to call them in different orders, what should I do?
Define it.
Just give the name of that parameter. Give the name of that parameter. Simple. Done. One more thing. That, you could return a value. You could say return, for example, return. Or you could not. You could, or you cannot. Okay? You could return a value and you cannot. This is a function. It can't be any simpler. Seriously. Very simple. Very easy. Okay. Okay. What else we need to know about functions? Can you call functions within functions? Yes. Yes. So you could have, for example, another function in here, def, for example, def. You call it f1, okay, whatever. Okay, you could call it in here f1. You could call functions within functions. Okay, what else we need to know? Can the function call itself? Yes, what we call this process? Recursion. We call it recursion. Okay, can the function call itself? Done. I don't have anything in my mind to talk about functions anymore. I think it covered it all. We'll see, right? Okay. So we finished functions, right? Functions. Okay. Let's take a look about the first important statement, which is f. All right. F. So f. Okay. If a condition, you have to have a condition. If x, for example, is greater than 10, don't forget what? The column. Okay? This condition could be longer. So for example, if x is greater than 10 and, for example, and x less than 3, for example. Don't forget the column, whatever, okay. Number 1, you don't forget the column. Number 2, you don't forget what?
Indent.
The indentation, right? All right? Then you write whatever you want. Whatever you want, yes.
The indentation, how many spaces?
It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. 4 is a common, as long as you have indentation, and as long as you follow it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Does it have to be consistent?
What?
Does it have to be consistent, so if you always use 4 spaces, you always use?
Not in the program,
Okay.
but in the same block.
Oh,
In the same block. So for example, if I use 4 in here, I have to be there is 4. If I write a different function and I have 3 indentation, that's fine. It's not wise, it's not smart. I mean, just have standard, but it will work. All right? So F statement. So what we have in here, what is this? We call it the condition. So we have F, we have the condition, and we have the colon, and we have the indentation. All right? Then you have your logic. Okay, print whatever. Print X, for example. Whatever logic you want. All right? That's a very simple sentence. What it is? F. If I need it to be complex, little bit more complex, if else. If else. If this condition happened, do this. Else, with nothing else. So you say for what? So you go from here to here, what you say?
Else.
Else. And colon, there's no condition. Okay, it's anything different than this. Okay? Then, for example, print go home, for example. Okay? Whatever, right? Else, if else. If, you could use else by itself, you could use if else. All right? What if there is multiple condition?
Else.
Huh?
Is it else if?
Else if. LF, whatever, right? LF or whatever, right? So you could have, for example, LF. I think it's LF, I forgot. LF, right?
Yeah, look.
LF, right? LF, another condition. You could have another condition in here. Okay? And don't forget the column. And then whatever. And you could have as many as you want. Okay? Of this. And so on and so forth. So you should have one F, one F, and one else, and many of those. Okay? So what a good example for grades, for example. So for example, okay, if the grade, for example, grade, let's call it G, grade, greater than 96, then it print what is a grade? A. If a grade, for example, else, if a grade is greater than 90, then his grade, for example, what? B. Grade is greater than 85, for example. C. Okay, else F, for example, print F. Right? Right? So multiple conditions. That is everything about if else. If else LF. That's everything. Okay, everything. Alright? Very simple sentences, not very complex. Okay, we do. Then after that we move to what? What we move to the two loops. Okay, two loops. Which one I want to start with? Four? Four? Okay. So 4, what is 4? You loop inside something. So before you learn 4, you have to learn a very fancy function called range. Okay, let's learn range. So when you say range, for example, range 5. What is the output? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So range 5, it will give you 5 outputs, starting from 0, okay, until 5, not inclusive. Okay, when I say range, for example, there is E in here. When I say range 3, what is the output?
0 to 2.
0,
1,
1,
2,
2.
That's it.
That's it. When I say range, okay, 0, 5. Or range, for example, 2, 5. What's the output?
3, 4.
Start from 2, okay, 3, 4, and the 5 is not inclusive. It's not inclusive. Okay, this one more. When I say range, okay, 2, 5, 2, 10, 2. What's the output?
2 to 9, and then 9.
So this is the step.
Steps, yeah.
So it will be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 is not inclusive. So we stop at 10, but it's not inclusive. So it will be 2, 4, 6, 8. Right? One more. When I say range, five, 0, minus 1.
Decorate.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So you go backwards, right? So it will be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And 0 is not inclusive. Okay? Good? All right. If I have a list, for example, I have a list for, we'll talk about this later. Let's say, okay, 0, 1. Okay. Let's call it A. Can you see here? Can you see here? A. A. B. D. Let's say this is a list. So what is this index? What is the index in here? 0. The index in here? 1. Here. 2. Here. 3. Alright? That's one way of indexing. The other way of indexing is by minus. So in here will become what? Minus 1. Minus 2. Minus 3. Minus 4. So there is a negative indexing and positive indexing. All right. So the range we might need it where? In the for statement. Okay, so let's try it. Okay. If I say, okay, okay, again, it's a very simple sentence. It cannot be any simpler. For, okay, a value, whatever a value, give it a value, give value, x, n, and what? Range. 5. Oh. So, what are the components? The for, the variable, the n, and something to iterate through, and the column. Very simple. Don't forget any. Okay? Okay, so which variable we are iterating it through is the x. The value of x will keep changing. Where is it getting the value from? From the range. So let's take a look at the range. What are the values for the range? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Agree? Okay. So what will happen? Okay, okay, let's have a sentence in here. Print x. All right, that's what it does. Print x. So, what does it mean loop? Enter and go back to the first line. enter, do all the set lines, and go back to that first line. Okay? Keep looping until you're done. Okay, we'll see when you are done. So how many loops we have to have in here? 5. How many times we gonna loop? 5. So the first time, what is the value of x? 0. So 0 gonna go in here. The x gonna go in here. What are you gonna print? 0. Then we finished, we'll go back. 4x, what is the value of x now? 1. It's gonna go in here. Print 1. Then what's the next value? X, 2. Then we'll go loop again. 3. What's the value of x now? 4. We finished the list in here. We finished the range. What does it do? Exit the loop. Exit the loop. All right?
It always has to be using integer numbers, or sometimes
It could be anything. It could be, so you don't have to, for example, you could, for example, let's do another one. 4, y, and a list. Okay, the list has A, B, C, D, and let's column. So what we do in here, print y. So the first time it loops, what's the value of y? Is A. Print y. What's the value of y? A. Then it will print B. Then it prints C. Then it prints D. All right? This we call it a list. Talk about, right?
Also, we can send an object of list.
What?
Object of a list.
It's an object, yes. List is an object.
Yeah, but for example, if I take what z is equals to a list A, B, C, D, and then for y in z, then it will work.
What?
So if I took a list of z, z is a list, okay. So in z I have A, comma B, comma C, comma D, and then for y in z, then it will work.
It could work, yes. The variable, yeah, it will work, yes. Yeah. Okay. All right. So what else? What else we have in for statement, and we have something called continue and break, right? Remember continue and break statements? Same like before. So for a condition, if I need to break of the loop, I just write break. Okay, or continue. What is the difference between a break and continue? Break is completely break out of the loop. And continue, what does it do? It will break from that cycle, will go back to the loop. It does not continue that cycle, it go back to the loop, right? Anything else about for would like to learn? That's what it is. For loop, okay? Much more simpler than, yes.
Can you give an example of the continue?
For a continuation, I could give you an example. Okay. So, let's take a look at this example in here. And you will help me to get the output, okay? So when you say for y and this, okay, we'll say f y equals C, okay, then colon, continue. And then we say print y. All right? So what does it do? What is the first value of y? A. Is A equals to C? No. So, which will not go to the center, will not go to the continue. It's going to go in here. So what will it print? A. Then, what's the value of y? B. If B equals to C. So this will not be executed, right? I'm going to go to where? To here. Print y. What's the value of y?
It's a B.
B. Then, let's go in here. For y and C. What's the value of y?
C.
C. Is C equals C?
Yes.
Continue. What does it mean continue?
Now it goes back
Don't
to-
continue the loop, go back to here.
Okay.
So C will not get printed. So now it goes in here. What's the value of Y? D. Is D equal C? No, this will not be executed. Print D. Should be. That's it. All right. Let's replace continue with a break. Of course, small with a break. So what will happen? What it will print? It will print A, B. That's it, because it will break completely of the loop. So it's not going to print neither C nor D. Correct? Simple break continue that we learned before from other programming languages. Mean single or double
Yeah.
doesn't make difference. We do like this. Okay? Does not make a difference. Okay. All right? Good?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look about the while. The while statement. All good?
So for any scenario, we have only one syntax in here in Python. For any scenario for loop, so we have the similar syntax.
Same syntax, yes. Okay. Yeah. The only thing in here what could change the iterator. You have to have something to iterate through. So there is different kind of iterators. Double could be anything. Okay. All right. So what else we can learn is about while. Okay. So what is while? While. While. Okay. Let's say true. Colon. While true. So while true, that means if as long as it's true,
It will
keep looping. But what we have to do before, okay, you have to, for example, okay, while true for loop. So in here, for example, okay, let's say pass. This will keep looping forever, right? Control C to get out of it, right? All right. So let's say in here x equals true. Okay, at the beginning, right? And then we say while x equals true, colon, don't forget the colon, and then here print whatever, hello, for example. Okay, so in here we'll keep also, what will happen in here? It's going to keep forever, because x is true. So you have to change the value of x somewhere inside it, right? Okay, so you could say if, for example, if x less than 10, print. And then when x greater than 10, else, okay, what are you going to do, for example? You're going to say x equals false, and it will break. Depends on your logic, right? While, condition, and keep rotating. And so usually the way you do it is a variable outside the while that controls the process. Okay, while x equals true, while x equals whatever, true or false, or a value. Okay, if x less than 9, print, and else false. It's the logic. It will keep looping until you break out of the loop. So there's for and while. What's the difference between for and while?
One check before the loop, one check after.
What?
One check the condition before the loop starts,
Hmm?
one check the condition after the loop.
Okay, and also, for is kind of, you know how many loops you have, depends on the range you have. But in here it could loop until something happens. Okay, something happens, right? Kind of, right? Okay, so that's what it is. I mean, we're done. Okay, just we have many examples in here. Okay, so so in here, for example, relational operators, equal to, not equal to, greater than, etc., etc. You need just to know them, how they work. Also, there's logical operators, which is like and or not. Okay, all right. And this is examples for the Boolean expressions that use logical operators. And, for example, in here, age is greater or equal to 65, and city is. Okay, this will make you. I mean, these tools. Knowing these tools will it's like a tools for you to use in your programming logic, right? Just take a look at them and see what are the different logical things. Okay. Also, you know, the output for comparison usually what? False or true. Okay. False with a capital F and true with a capital T. All right. Also, when working with the strings, always there's two functions, okay, lower and upper. Okay, I mean, if you say, for example, if you say, okay, y equals y, is this true or false? False. Why? Because this capital and this small, right? So when you have a questionnaire, and the answer is supposed to be y or y or no. Does it make a difference for you? Is it big Y or small y? No. So when you check the answer, what you should do first? Lower all the answers or upper all the answers, because it does not make a difference for you whether it's small y or big Y, right? What matters for you is it y or not y. So what do? You lower it. What does it mean lower it? Convert it to lowercase. Upper it. What does it mean? Convert it to uppercase. So these are all tools are very important for you to know when you use it. Okay? So for example in here, when I'm comparing, look in here. When I'm comparing string 1 with a string 2, I don't care about is uppercase or lowercase. I care about is the same word or a different word. Alright? So to make the comparison make sense, what I did in here, I lowered it. Okay, I lowered the string 2, I lowered string 1, then when I compared them gave me true. What is string 1? Mary with capital M. What is string 2? Mary with small m. So before I compare them, let them bring them to the same ground. Make them lower, okay? So this is like very important to know, the lower and lowercase. So we spoke about the if statement, so if, elif, and else. Remember the else has nothing, no condition. Else, it's just else. Anything else. Alright? And don't forget the columns. Many people like stick, I mean, myself when I started programming with Python many years, I spent like 5 minutes, I don't know why it's running, and I'm forgetting what? A column. So since then, whenever I teach Python, don't forget the column, don't forget the column, don't forget the column. Why? Because I forgot, because we don't have columns where? In C++ and in Java, right? We don't have the columns. What else we don't have there? Indentation, okay? But now, you know, the error, when you have an error, when you read the error, really it's written very well. Usually the error explains everything for you. So some of us, when they say the error, they get scared. Okay? They try to fix it before they read the error. No, read the whole error first. I promise you, you know what is your problem. It tells you where's the line you have problem, and what's the problem. Okay? That's all you have to do. Very simple, very simple. All right. So this is, for example, the example we wrote in the class. If score greater than or equal 90, then grade A. Answer. So F, LF, 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 LF. The last one, else, thing else, right? Anyways, so you have that. Okay, in here, this is a program. You could take a look. There's a few programs written for you. Just try them. Good luck with them. Okay, the code is given for you. Just download the code and play with it. Okay? Okay. So in here, what we have, the while statement. Okay, so while statement, Boolean expression, and then the statement. So for example, look at this code in here. Okay, so choice equals y. While choice.lower equals y. Okay. Then print hello, choice input, then you ask the user for the input. You know, you ask him enter y or no. He could enter it capital or small. So how can I solve this problem? Whatever he enters, what the first thing, what should I do? Lower it. Okay? Then when I compare it with the y in here, it will be a good comparison. Alright? Alright. Before we talk about the for, we started with the range function, right? Range function. So range function, that's the syntax. You could have range, the stop value, or start, stop, and step. Here are some examples. Take a look at the last example. Range 5, 0, minus 1. So it will start from 5, then 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay? Remember, the stop value is not inclusive. The stop value is not. So the start value is inclusive. The stop value is not inclusive. The stop value is not inclusive. Try this example we wanted to do. Okay. We spoke about the break. We gave good example in the break, right? Okay, and continue. All right, and anybody is confused about the difference between break and continue? Everybody's good? All right. Okay. These are examples for you. You could play with them. The fire loop. Okay. All right. Then after that, we spoke about. We started actually talking about functions, defining functions. So functions again, very simple, very easy. It starts with def, the name, and the parameters. The parameters that you pass to it. It could be 1, 2. It could be 0 also. It could be any number of parameters, right? All right. One function I did not talk about, the lambda function. Let's see, where is it? Oh, okay. Also, usually if you would like to have multiple like inputs, you could have a toggle. Okay. So for example, here, let me put it in here. So if I say, for example, def add 3Ds and A, B, C, then return A plus B plus C. So how many inputs I can have, or I should have? How many parameters? 3. Okay. If I need 5, I could make it 5, right? But what if the input, I don't know what's the input of parameters? Could be 5, could be 3, could be 4, could be 20. Okay? So all I have to do, I could add a tuple like this, asterisk T. Alright? Alright, asterisk T. And in the program, all I have to do, the size, for example, size is size of T. Okay, whatever the value of T. And then, okay, I could, for example, I call it add, for example, add 1, 2, 4, 20, 40, as much as I want. And I have to write the logic, of course, for I in T, size. For example, I could say, for example, for I in, all right, range, the size, okay, and then what, for example, output out plus equals the out, for example. All right. So what I'm doing in here, in this function, the number of parameters are or is variable. Okay. So look at this example in here. I'm calculating the average. Let me go to my station. I'm calculating the average. So I don't know how many grades I have to enter. So I said, accept a list of arguments as a total. Okay? So initially the total and the count is 0. So for I and t, this is the t, okay, I and t. If type of I n integer or float, so the value I entered is integer or float, what I do, total plus the value, and then I add the count. I keep looping until I finish all the inputs, and then after that, total divided by the count, if the count is greater than 0, else 0, because I cannot count by 0. Clear? It's clear, right? So this way I could have a multiple, not a multiple, it's always multiple, it could be 0 multiple, a variable number of parameters, variable number of parameters. So the question to you, how can I make the parameters to the parameters to the function variable by using a tuple, okay? All right. Any questions? So the lambda function is a simple function. Okay, lambda function is a simple function. So I don't have to write lambda function is just if you have a very simple function that you need to use. Okay, so let's say that I need to write a function to add two numbers. So for example, I call it add, for example, add. Okay, what is add in here? Is the name of the function. Is the name of the function. And I could say lambda, okay, and the parameter, x, for example, and y, and then colon, what are you going to do with them? X plus y. So how many parameters I have for this function? 2. If I need to call it, well, how I call the function? The name, and what I have in here? Parameters. 5, 5. So what will happen? The 5 will go to where? To the x, and the 5 go to the y. Then x plus y, it will be calculated. Okay, so if you have a function which is one line, use the lambda function. You don't have to, but it's like a short kind of a function. Lambda, called lambda function. Okay, is it confusing? It's very simple. It's very handy when you try to use it. Recursion, I don't want to talk about recursion, but you know what's recursion? Function call itself. What a good example to solve a recursion. What a good problem for recursion? Factorial, right? There is many built-in functions like the print and all of that. So for example, I mean, like, you know, where the functions come from? From two sources. Okay? So there is built-in functions and there is libraries. So if I need to use the function inside the library, what I have to do first with the library? Import it. Okay? In C++, what we call? Include. In Java, what we call it? Import. In Python, what we call it? Import. All right? So if I would like to use a math, one of the math, like power or tan or sine or cosine, whatever, there is a library called math. So I import math as math. I give it a nickname, sure, because sometimes the libraries are long names. All right? I give it a short name. It could be one letter, as m, for example. Okay? And whenever I need to call a function, I start with the nickname. So in here, what's the nickname of the math? Math. If I need to use sine or cosine, for example, how I call cosine? Math.cosine. Math.sine. Math.the function. Okay? So I start with, if the library name is the last name and the function is the first name, I start with last name. What's the last name? Is the library name, the nickname. Okay, so in here, for example, I need to call the square root. What's the square root? Is a function. Is a square root built in the Python? Is it a standard function? No. It's part of a library. What's the name of the library? Math. To be able to use a function, what should I do first? Import. the library, and give it what? A nickname. Then after that, when I need to call any function in that library, I start with last name dot first name, library name dot function or method. Okay. All right. So that's what we did in here. All right. All right. I mean, we covered all of this, by the way. All right, the only thing we did not cover is this sentence. You see it a lot, right? All right. So usually, like when you have a file, okay? Usually in the file, what do you have? Functions, right? But execution starts from where? In C++. Go to your C++ word, to Java. It starts from where? Main function, from the main function. So the way we call main, there's two ways. We call it like, just call the main. Okay. So for example, you could have your, okay. So usually in a file, what you do, let's say that's your file, right? Let's say that's your file, right? And this is f1.py, right? So that's your file, right? Okay. Usually you start with the import. Multiple imports, for example. Okay, then you have def, for example, def f1. Then def f2. Right? Then def f3. Okay, and there is always the main function, right? Def main. From the main, what usually you do? You call other functions, right? You have your logic to call other functions, right? When you start executing, which function has to be executed first? Main. So what you could say in here, you could call it like this, main. Or better, especially when you have multiple files, okay, because usually when you write your code, you don't write it in one file, right? You don't run it in one file, right? Usually, like you write it in multiple files, okay? So you could have another file, for example, in here. I said, okay, let's we call it for f2.py. So if to include it in here, what you have to say, import p2. F2, I'm sorry. So you imported this file to your main file. You could have a third file, for example, in here is f3.py. Okay, if you need to import it, what you say? Import f3, for example. Right? All right. Where is your main file? It's the main file. That's where you call everything, right? So what you do, you say if name equals main. That means this is the main file. Okay, run main. Okay, that means if you start executing from this file, call the main in here. Call the main in here, and then automatically will call everything else. All right. If you are confused, that's fine. Okay, let's memorize it. Okay, in the main file, what we include, if underscore score main underscore score equals, okay, colon underscore underscore main underscore score main, okay, colon. That's it. Just keep it there. Okay. All right. So there's a few programs for you. You could take a look at them. And there is a convert temperature program. It's in here. Just run it. I mean, write it, not run it. Just take a look at the problem. Write it yourself. Okay. Spend half an hour to write the code. If you have a problem, go refer to this code. Then there's a guess the number game. Okay, play with it. Then big dice game. And big dice game local. Okay. Alright. And the temperature converter. So you could play with these codes if they are available for you in there. Just a second. Okay, this is a game. It's written for you. Let's play it for a second for fun. All right. So you know what's the game? Okay. The game is. So you wanna. I mean, we need two people to compete, right? So see how many turns it takes you to get 220. Okay, it's like a dice. You flip it, right? Turn ends when you hold roll of 1. If you roll 1, you lose all points for the turn. So okay, so your choice is R for roll or hold. So dice, right? Okay. So let's say that you are very lucky. Okay, you roll it, and you get 6. Okay, and you say roll again and you get another 6. How much will be? 12. And roll it again. 18. And you roll it again and you get 2. How much? 20. Winner. How many turns you had? 1. 1, because it's 1. Okay, 1 turn, right? The problem is if you roll it and you get 1, you go back to where? To 0. So let's say you start with 6. Okay, another 6, how much you have? You roll again, you got 1. How much now you have? 0. Okay? 0. Okay? The only way to protect yourself, you have to hold. You have to hold. So if you hold the turn, even if you get 1, I mean, let's say you say 6, and you say hold. So how many turns you have? 1. Now you enter turn 2, right? And you run it to get 6. How much you have? 12. Okay. You run it again, you get 1. How much you get? 0 to go back to how much? To 6. Because you hold at 6. All right? So who is the winner who have less turns? So let's say you managed to reach 20 with the 3 turns. And he managed to reach 20 with 4 turns. Who is the winner? You are the winner. So let's start with you, okay? So now you are at turn 1. You are at turn 1, okay? Okay, and roll or hold. Of course, roll. Roll, right? So 3. The dice gave you 3. Roll or hold.
Roll.
3. How much total you have? 6. Roll or hold.
Roll it.
Wow, 9. Okay.
Let's do one more roll.
1 more roll. 9 plus 5.
Hold.
Hold. Okay, so you have 14 now, but you are in turn 2. Okay, what do you want to do?
Roll.
So 17. What do you want to do?
I can't go over 20, right? Or
You could.
and that's fine.
Oh yeah.
Let's roll it.
So
Roll. Roll one more time. Hold. And then let's roll it. Well, it's over 20 now, right?
no, it's not. Your total score is 19 so far. Is it?
Plus 6.
So you have to say hold.
No.
Well, I'm at 25 now, right?
Yeah, he's a 25.
I think it has to be.
Okay, so let's say hold. Okay, so it's how many turns you have?
Four.
How many turns? Four? Four is somebody else. Okay, let's run it, somebody else. So you managed to get there in 4 turns. Who would like to play? Okay, good. Go ahead. Of course, you have to roll at the beginning. What you're thinking. So you have 4. Then
Roll.
8,
Roll.
12,
Roll. Roll.
hold. Roll. Hold. That's smart. So you need one more try. You are almost 19. So roll. 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 Oh. So you are now 19 plus 3, and it's like you have 2 turns. So you are the winner. Okay? So you take him for lunch. You take him for lunch. So in this world nowadays, the losers are the winners. So, all right. Okay, so it's like it's a program is written for you. Play with it. Okay, play with it. And, okay, any questions? The assignment, yes. Just give me until tomorrow. You could play. I mean, the question in the posted assignment 2 will be there. I'm adding a few questions. So you could start.
Assignment 2 would be due Wednesday, correct?
Assignment 2 is due Monday.
This Monday?
Assignment 2.
Okay.
I mean, usually one day before the class. So the class is on a Tuesday, should be Monday.
Okay.
Okay? So usually the assignment is the midnight before the day of the... Okay? I mean, you're talking about 2, right?
Yes.
Okay. Also 1, I'll give extension until next week also. So 1 and 2 next week.